you so much. This is the first time I've had the opportunity to be with the board in, I don't know, maybe a couple of years now. So thank you for that. I suspect that many of you are aware, but I'll reaffirm. Terry Brown, our superintendent here at the monument, has been assigned to at least a one-year detail, serving as the sort of coordinator and staff person for the 250th Commission for the National Park Service. As a result of his work on the 2019 efforts, no good deed goes unpunished, and so they asked him to take on a larger effort in helping to support the coordination of National Park Service work in the 250th commemoration of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So Terry left on March 16th, and on March 17th, COVID hit and we closed. So I began to feel it was no great coincidence. He may have predicted that something was coming and said, I'm out, I'm gonna go work from home and do good things. So kudos to him for his brilliance and the timing. But in all seriousness, I have taken over the role as acting superintendent since the 16th of March. It is my intention and to fill behind Terry in an acting capacity with another person so that I have additional staffing down here, and I'll get into that in just a moment. But I am serving as the full superintendent right now, even though I would normally be Terry's supervisor. I retain my role as superintendent of Colonial National Historical Park, but I easily spend 50% of my time, if not more, on Fort Monroe issues right now. And so a lot going on in a very small park. Terry was instrumental in much of the really engaged programming efforts here with regard to special events and African and African American history. I will be doing my best in conjunction with the staff and with the site manager that I bring on in his absence to continue those efforts of acknowledgement, connection, and commemoration. But bear with me as I try to download everything that Terry had in his vision and in his mind as we continue to try to find ways to connect the community to the monument. I would like to follow up just on this issue very briefly. The National Park Service has been actively involved in both watching and responding to what's been going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, and certainly the response locally to the monument. I think some of you know we've incurred some painting and a little bit of, I don't want to say damage, expression within some of our structures. And the way we have tried to speak about it in the media, and we will continue to hold this posture, is we don't support or condone any sort of marring or albeit vandalism to any of our historic structures. And at the same time, I think Glenn and I have talked extensively about what are the effective ways that we can channel that expression, whether it be pain, frustration, simply a desire to be heard, trying to find effective ways to channel that within the monument and remain a place of both expression, dialogue, and healing. And so I don't know exactly what form that's going to take as we move through this, but we're grateful for the opportunity to have a dialogue with any number of groups about how that will play out for the National Park Service. We are still in COVID-19 response, pandemic response in the National Park Service. The one permanent employee that I still have here at the moment is working from home, and we're having a consistent dialogue around when is it safe to return. We work hand in hand, and I think in fact we've got some calls scheduled next week to talk about what are we doing with the visitor center, how will that staffing look into the summer, what are our opportunities to contribute to continued educational programming and visitor experience here, but trying to understand when is it safe to do that, both in compliance with the governor's guidelines on phase 2 and phase 3, as well as our own agency requirements. So we'll be working to move forward on reestablishing some of those programming and those offerings safely. As I stated, I am getting ready to make an offer to someone to come down and serve as the site superintendent here in Terry's absence. I expect that either by the end of this week or the beginning of next week, I'll know for certain who that is. and that they are willing to come and participate and help me lead here. If the person that I'm interested in actually accepts the offer, I think it would be a very good day for Fort Monroe, and we will be lucky to have this person on our staff and helping to progress forward over the next year. It is possible that Terry's detail will extend, and until such time as he gets a new job or returns, we're in sort of an interim status here. So I just want to clarify a little bit about where we were from a hiring perspective. I have also made a tentative offer to hire our Chief of Facilities. Wanted to thank Mr. Hutchison. He was part of our interview and paneling committee to participate in the interview process and help me determine who the best fit would be from a facilities perspective. So thank you, John. And I'm very excited about the person that we're getting ready to bring on to help do the work here and coordinate with your facilities functions and see where we can, as I'm looking at these capital improvements, I'm thinking about the ways in which we can better coordinate our efforts to leverage mobilization costs or anything that might streamline projects, and where you're doing work, if we can build into that and be more fiscally efficient together. I look forward to that coordination. I think that would benefit both of us. I am trying to get more up to speed on the issues related to North Beach, or what everybody calls Dog Beach, the area that is currently still under possession by the Army and Department of Defense. My understanding at this point is that there is a statement or an affirmation from the military that they are needing information from Fort Monroe National Monument and the Park Service as to our plans for the use of that property before they can completely determine what type of remediation for the contaminations that might be on that property can be accomplished. While there may be some debate as to who is responsible for which piece of this, what I don't want is for the National Park Service to be a holdup to progression of development or use and preservation and protection of Fort Monroe. So we're talking internally about how will we go about looking at some planning efforts that we could then share with the military that would allow them to move forward on remediation. So I have a suspicion that based on the timelines I'm aware of for contamination cleanup and the checkpoints that have to go along with that process, I will be retired before we take possession of that property. But we don't want to be the obstructionist or the holdup to that, so we'll be looking for ways in which we can offer the military what they seek in order to allow us to move forward. So just a little update on that. We have lost the last historic preservation employee that was attached to Fort Monroe through one of our central offices, which is slowing down our ability to move forward with our Quarters 1 project. But I am optimistic that our facilities person can help us get back up to speed, and we'll look at ways in which we can partner with Fort Monroe Foundation, among others, to get Quarters 1 back up and going and stabilized and preserved as we need to. Speaking of Fort Monroe Foundation, we are in the final stages of preparing all of the documents that are needed in order to get our partnership and philanthropic agreement in place with the foundation, which allows them to do more proactive fundraising on our behalf, which then allows us to be a more active partner in the conservation and preservation of issues here and properties here at Fort Monroe. So I'm very excited about that progression. We've also been setting up ways in which the three organizations can move and operate together more effectively. I'm very appreciative. Mr. Reynolds, Mr. Jarvis, and I and others have been working together to coordinate all of the efforts to streamline all the things that we do here together, particularly from a philanthropic perspective. And I appreciate those efforts to allow us to be more efficient and effective. In the next couple of years, the leases for the Paradise Ocean Club and the Colonies RV Park will begin to expire, and we'll be looking at ways in which we reshape the documents that are attached to those business opportunities here at the Fort. And again, look forward to going out and figuring out how we recruit or support the best business opportunities for public service within those leases. So it'll take a few years to get them built up and ready to go, but we'll be hiring a business manager. We just made an offer to a business manager at Colonial National Historical Park, who will also support helping us develop the most effective business opportunity documents for those leasing opportunities here at Fort Monroe. So we can talk further about that if needed. And finally, I'm certainly happy to take questions, but there's one final statement I'd like to make, and I'm sure you bear with me for a moment. On my phone is it tells me how many, there are certain people that I call all the time or that I receive calls from, and it puts little stars by their name that says, these are your most called. One of them is my son, one of them is my boss, and the other one is Mr. Oder. If we don't talk multiple times a day, we at least talk multiple times a week. He has been an exceptional partner, as has all of his staff who supports us. I am basically a person of one right now with a terrific staff member who works from home, and we are working hard. We are busting ourselves trying to get things done, but I could not do it without these fabulous people. They bend over backwards to be good partners, good stewards. Glenn helps coordinate everything that we've done with regard to safety of the public during COVID, Black Lives Matter response under some of these demonstrations, everything that we've done thinking about special events, everything that we've done thinking about facilities management. We are in lockstep, and I just really wanted the board to know and the public to know if I had partnerships like this throughout all of the work that I do, I would be an exceptionally more successful park superintendent. So thank you, Mr. Oder, publicly, Mr. Hutchison, Phyllis, all of the staff, Aaron, everybody who has supported us, Donna. I couldn't do this without all of them, so thank you. Just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you for sharing that.
You bet.
And for the comprehensive report, I found that very helpful to hear what's going on. Are there other thoughts or questions of Ms. Hall? Anyone wants to ask or share? District?
So not to put any pressure on you, Kym, but the Senate this week passed a major piece of legislation, the U.S. Senate, with 75 votes in favor to give the Park Service in the next 5 years several $1 billion to address deferred maintenance. I think that fund, they have a large deferred maintenance backlog, but this would be an opportunity for Fort Monroe National Monument to get in the queue for paying its fair share of the joint maintenance costs here, as well as getting some more money for quarters 1 or its other structures that are part of the monument. And I think this is a huge thing. It obviously hasn't passed the House yet, but it's expected to in the next couple of weeks. And the President has said he will sign it. So the Park Service is going to have an infusion of funds that I think can benefit Fort Monroe if we use our esteemed board chair, who has great access in the Congress, and folks in Richmond who know how, like Matt Strickler, Secretary Strickler, who knows how to work with the U.S. Congress and the federal government. I think we can get in line for some of this funding to support the maintenance backlog at Fort Monroe.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'm actually happy to speak about that. About a year and a half ago, when the first version of that bill was percolating up, I believe coming out of Senator Warner's office, there was a movement and an awareness within the National Park Service that was coming, and that we would need to be as ready as possible to spend those funds. There was a team of people sent out to assess different parks who had large maintenance backlogs, the park up at Colonial being one of them. And they identified several projects while they were there for Colonial, and I asked them to please go down to Fort Monroe while they were here and to look at the project possibilities there. So I know that that same team looked at both utility systems, because those are often the most expensive to deal with and the least sexy from any kind of fundraising standpoint, but exceptionally valuable for operations. So I do know that they came and looked at utility systems, and they looked at quarters 1, and they were developing project proposals for at least some, if not all, of that work. So it has definitely been my intention to keep Fort Monroe on the radar when it comes to the Great American Outdoors Act. Yeah.
Good deal.
I don't think they're allowing any kind of compensation for operations, but they are supporting architecture and engineering and the planning efforts.
Great, thank you. Any other thoughts or conversations before we move along?
Dr. I want to ask Ed. Ed, somewhere in the back of my mind, I think I got an email from Dr. Ayers which said you had to leave at 11:10. Is that true, or was that just a nightmare I had?
That has shifted. I'm still with you, and I'm actually been asked by Mike Westfall to talk a little bit about the foundation. So that's what I'm ready to do now, if that's convenient.
We have some more questions about the National Park Service, but I didn't want to run out of time.
We're fine. We're fine. Thank you. I'm here ready when you call.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry.
Question. The concern of the Black Lives Matter movement, as we're seeing it in this moment, issues of expression, use the term expression aside, how would you characterize the tenor of the moment and the public's kind of, I guess, disposition towards National Park Service / 410 at this time? Do you see it as something that can be channeled into larger conversations? What's the kind of tenor that you're
Yeah, absolutely. I would say across the country, different Park Service units are experiencing this movement, this discussion about racial equality differently. I can only speak to my personal assessment of what I feel as a park manager here in this particular region. It feels very different to me here. It feels like people are coming to Fort Monroe because they've already felt that there's a willingness and a receptivity to telling stories and being open to commemorative acts, acknowledgement, healing, memorialization. I don't want to put words in anybody else's mouth, but when I saw the pictures that had the spray paint on there of the different signs, I said, you know, there are places where people's expression is burning things to the ground. And they're not doing that. There's not a movement to attack us. It's a movement to be heard. I think we're still trying to understand exactly what our roles should be in that dialogue. But the Park Service is expected to be a forum for dialogue. This building being a perfect example of that, right? What kinds of community panel discussions might we be able to have? I think the only challenge I have personally right now is how do we convene without congregating, right? Mm-hmm. So that faces a little bit of a timing challenge for me in terms of wellness. But as we talk about, we were asked about this petition for the Harriet Tubman Memorial, and that's where somebody says, we want you to talk more about this issue. We want you to put this piece of the story out. We want you to commemorate this issue. We want you to allow this event to take place. We want you to have different events that express this history. Our job and our role right now is to be as supportive and open to that as we can be without speaking other people's words for them. So to me, it feels very positive. Somebody wrote on kind of an internal Facebook group, who are we now? Who are we right now? Aren't we worried about our agency, the National Park Service, in this upheaval? I said, absolutely not. I'm not worried at all. In fact, I've never felt like we were going to have the most real conversations that we've ever needed to have till this moment. And I think it's wonderful. Challenging, intimidating a little bit, but absolutely positive. And so I don't know that I can tell you I have all the ideas, but I'm absolutely willing to hear what anybody else has to say to figure out what are the ways we can express those ideas and have those conversations.
Thank you.